Section 3. Why are we miserably successful? In this section, we will analyze what makes us miserable, key stressors, sources of anxiety and tension. Everything that can be counted doesn't count. Everything that counts cannot be counted. Anonymous. Chapter 5. What makes us miserable? The title Miserably Successful No More is a little dramatic, intentionally, to grab your attention and really make you think. So you will realize that, perhaps, you are unhappily trapped in the golden cage of your success, or, feeling empty inside, are living a life of quiet desperation. The first step is to autopsy the term miserably successful with the thoroughness of a forensic pathologist. The very act of defining success may be the root cause of your unproductive behaviors. Did you assume that money equaled success, and then, acquiring it, feel unhappy and unfulfilled? As you go through the list, identify specific factors you relate to with non-judgmental self-observation. Reflect on the things that shaped you early in life, and how has that worked for you? Take examples from young adulthood as well, listing critical events that impacted you from this phase. What are your funny mirrors? Your optical illusions about your physical presence and personality. Perhaps you had a dominating boss as a new young employee who told you that your questions were absurd. If so, did that change your behavior? Make you stop asking those difficult questions? Factors such as sibling order, socioeconomic status, parental power, and educational levels impact our worldview. We are molded by events around us. For example, our primary adult figure during our first 3 years of life is critical in shaping our beliefs and values. What causes the misery? M. Materialism, equating personal value with physical objects or status. I. Incongruence, between purpose, action, and words. S. Stress, the explosion fueled by business demands, personality, resilience. E. Emptiness, feeling hollow and unfulfilled inside. R. Relationships, general or with specific people. Y. Yeti, the abominable snowman of negative self-talk. Author's note: these results are based on polls, feedback from session participants, personal observations, and informal interviews conducted over 3 years. The objective is to identify and reduce derailers at their source. We will fail many times before we can reach lasting change. Therefore, resilience and self-forgiveness are critical. Authoring a book called Miserably Successful No More, I lapsed multiple times, self-sabotaging the book launch. You are reading this book now. Therefore, I overcame these challenges obviously, though it felt overwhelming and impossible. M is for materialism. Materialism and affluence are two entirely different concepts. My definition of materialism. Materialism isn't about owning nice things. Materialism is about nice things owning you. A colleague and friend defined it as a sense of contentment or joy at the possessing or gaining of material things. A surprisingly positive definition. However, he added, the more he and his family acquire, the more of his mental space it occupies. Materialism leads to a lack of simplicity. The more we have, the more we covet. How many of the things you chase are things you need, or are they things others have that suddenly appear more attractive? People often assume, mistakenly, that in order to be less materialistic, one must live a monastic existence in a cave or mountain miles away from humanity. Materialism is nebulous. It's not about owning the latest car or beautiful home. It's about why you purchased it in the first place. It's about whether I, as a person, need that car to get to my destination, and the ease with which it drives, as opposed to the fact that a certain luxury brand is required for executives at this company, or a house below a certain number of rooms or square footage would signal to the world that I haven't arrived. Interesting concept, that arriving. It implies that one is going toward a goal which, once reached, invites a full stop. when the truth is, one never arrives in life. One just tries to get closer to authentic impact and well-being. Author's note: there is a distinct difference between affluence and materialism. Many of you readers choosing to read a book entitled Miserably Successful No More are just that, successful, as defined in financial or quality of life metrics. Liking nice things and being obsessed by possessing stuff are two entirely different concepts. My purpose in writing this book is that you read with purpose. Let's pause in our reading for a minute. Think about, in your gut, whether you are materialistic or not. Remember, your self-serving bias will kick in. I have justified buying branded shoes because they are more comfortable than regular ones. But is that really true? Further, do I need so many shoes? You and I both know the answer to those uncomfortable questions. Here are 3 simple steps to reduce the hold of materialism. 1. Assess which of your nice things own you, and which are the nice things you own. Keep the ones you own. Trade, give, and sell the others. 2. Examine, and this is more difficult, whose story or rule is playing in your mind when you assign a value to something. Perhaps a master's degree, your father's voice saying, an MBA will give you a stamp and more income, even though you really don't want to pursue it. Or a specific painting, which you never really liked, but bought anyway. Imagine you had a financial overhaul. What would you need to be comfortable? Not to survive. You have worked too hard for too long, but to live with enough and a little more. Use that to determine what else can be donated to simplify your life. Pause for a moment to reflect on each factor. When you have gone through the entire MISERY acronym, determine which one is the sharpest pain point for you. Ask yourself about the size and cost of items you own. Do you have a compulsive need to collect things? Is the value of these items critical or relatively unimportant to you? If you are a pack rat, that is a different discussion, related to clutter and a disorganized state of mind. Separate out the two. If you self-categorized as overwhelmed by clutter, focus on the surroundings. Stress section, as mentioned in Chapter 6. If it's something deeper, question your compulsion to get a home or car beyond your means. Have you fallen into the keeping up with the Joneses syndrome? And if the answer is yes, whose values are you mimicking? What is the hole you are trying to fill with objects? The story of Christmas debt, a Groundhog Day phenomenon. It was a shocker to me when I first moved to the U.S. to observe a colleague's debt patterns. We were both working in the agronomy department of the local university. Every November, she would go into a buying frenzy, maxing out her credit cards to buy expensive gifts for her family, spending hundreds of dollars on gift bags, wrapping paper, bows, cards, and thousands on the actual gifts. Then, she would be in debt for the rest of the year, paying absurdly high interest rates on her credit cards. She would somehow get free of debt by August. A month or two of normal bills, and then the vicious cycle would start again. With a brain freshly imported, using an entirely different Asian culture and mindset, I asked her naively, why don't you agree with your family to exchange cards one year? Or just $10 gifts for the children in the family? It might save everyone a lot of hassle. And I am sure your family would be horrified if they knew you can't really afford these gifts. She looked at me as if I had suddenly grown an extra pair of ears, completely shocked. I realized that she would never change the pattern unless something drastic happened, like bankruptcy. She was trapped in a prison of false pretenses, a materialistic identity defined by objects. Your case may not be this extreme. You may just need a slight tweak of your approach to things. Take your family to a beach vacation instead of buying another expensive artifact. Create memories that last a lifetime, or give a chunk to a foundation or scholarship for needy children or young adults. Ultimately, it comes down to these questions. How much money, time, and resources do you have to spend? How do you spend them now? How would you be best served if these resources were freed up to do more good? I is for incongruence. Incongruence occurs when there is a contradiction between two things which should be aligned. It can feel like dissonance. deep in one's soul. Some examples of incongruence are words not equal to actions, words and actions not equal to values, stated values not equal to truth, value 1 actions not equal to value 2, and so on. The cost of incongruence can be very high, resulting in one or more of these outcomes: a degradation of self-worth, a toxin that seeps into your skin, a reinforcement of the imposter syndrome, which can lead to a chronic fear of being found out for who one really is, a loss of peace and equanimity, an increase in stress levels. Let me explain with a couple of real-life situations. Words not equal to actions, real-life example of incongruence. Michael was lying down in a hotel room at the end of a busy day, and he was suddenly struck by 2 questions. First of all, which city was he in? Beijing or San Francisco? Second, what was he doing here? That's right. He was going for another award, the Sales Leader of the Year that he had won twice before, which came with a fabulous all-expense-paid vacation and prestige and respect. And yet, he had a loving family, which included a small child. Was he leaving her childhood behind? Rushing from place to place, missing important rites of passage, her prize distributions, school concerts, just being with his family. His words stated that his family came first. His calendar and actions told a different story. 2 years later, he took the first nerve-wracking step toward changing his lifestyle. Today, he is a successful independent consultant who is there for the important and critical events for his family and his own professional and personal growth. He has discovered that he loves to teach. One day, perhaps, he will become a full-time professor. In the meantime, his calendar and his words are aligned. He is miserably successful no more. Let's discuss each of these aspects in more detail. Words not equal to actions. Words and actions not equal to values. Stated values not equal to truth. Value 1 actions not equal to value 2. Words not equal to actions, or words and actions not equal to values. Let's go back to the 2 truths and a lie framework. If you self-assessed as being a brush, chances are that you don't say exactly what you think. In an effort to be polite, you are living in a world of euphemisms and white lies, and over time, this is making you feel dishonest inside, which leads to feelings of guilt or shame. I know these feelings well as a people pleaser in my teens and 20s. Currently, I am more of a hammer than a brush. 2 decades of practice have made me more honest. However, this is a lifelong journey. For those of you wondering how to move from glossy lie to palatable truth, try this simple first step. Practice internally what you want to say for a month. Do nothing. Just become aware of what you would have said or done if you were guaranteed that there would be positive results from your honesty. Do this for every interaction where you are conscious of a feeling of holding something back. You may be surprised at how often you are smiling when you don't feel like it. Saying it's okay when something is bothering you is like a piece of food stuck between your teeth, uncomfortable, vaguely annoying. After a month of noticing the, often surprising, number of times you don't say or do what you honestly feel, let's move into Phase 1 actions. Apply this only in a few low-risk, simple situations. Let me bring the principle to life using a real situation. Names have been changed for confidentiality. Scenario: reducing incongruence between words and thoughts. You and your friend routinely have lunch together. Your friend is a charming, strong-minded person with very clear opinions. For years you have been eating at barbecue and meat-heavy restaurants because your friend likes them. You don't like meat much, and particularly dislike barbecue. One day you decide to say before going for lunch with your friend, "I don't really like barbecue. Can we go to another restaurant instead?" Your friend looks surprised and says, "Sure, let's do Chinese." You almost feel deflated. If this was so easy, why didn't you do this years ago? In this example, it worked out surprisingly well. All of your attempts will not go so well. Expect some pushback and be self-aware. If you are a brush, you will immediately want to back down and apologize. If you decide to stop rocking the boat due to that uncomfortable feeling in the pit of your stomach, don't give up. Refer to your emotional intelligence self-assessment. Look at the summary slide and see which aspects are in play. For example, can you increase your self-awareness and assertiveness, and perhaps be less flexible? And continually ask yourself why you feel the need to be so polite and fearful of other people's disapproval. Above all, don't give up as soon as you hit a barrier. Author's note: a coaching client said frankly she wasn't sure this was the right time for change. The more I highlighted issues with her current style, the more she second-guessed herself, to the point of not being sure of anything. This was actually a good sign, since she had been unconsciously incompetent. Reference: The Ladder of Competence, a popular behavioral framework, and had now moved into conscious incompetence. Hopefully, she will have both the skill and the will to move into conscious competence, perhaps eventually achieving the highest level, i.e., unconscious competence. Value misalignment: stated values not equal to the truth, or value 1 actions not equal to value 2. Pull out your calendar. Look at your vision statement. Now see how your calendar looks. What jumps out at you? Are the 5 to 10 hours a week you spend on TV, movies, and playing video games accurately captured somewhere? If learning is so important, why have you not scheduled your own personal development this year? If helping is critical, how many hours of volunteer activities have you clocked? Have you donated enough to the charity you believe in to help little underprivileged children? Given until it hurts? The answer is uncomfortable. The temptation is to move on. Don't do it, reader. Don't move on. Listen to that voice, that conscience that says you are living a life of incongruence. Don't judge yourself. Change your actions. Make one small change and see the ripple effect. First, donate something of yourself. Time, efforts, objects, money. Next, encourage others to do the same. Why have I included a link with a suggestion for a charity in my niece's name to help underprivileged youth? To make it easy for readers to give generously. This is an example of a ripple effect, paying it forward until one reaches a tipping point or gains momentum. How might your ripple effect play out? In addition to your personal donations of time and resources, how will you try and leverage your professional access for helping that scared, hungry little child in your mind's eye? What are the incongruences in your calendar, planner, daily routine? Why do they continue? What do you get from this habit of incongruence? What positive habit will you add as you remove the time drain? Nature abhors a vacuum and rushes in to fill it. For example, people who stop smoking often resort to overeating. So when you stop doing something incongruent, make sure you quickly put in something of value. Let's look at your last 5 critical interactions. How aligned were your words and actions? Did you have conflicting values? When values conflict, or if you are naturally more of a glossy brush, there's an excellent process that could help. It's called 5 Ways to Say Yes. Interestingly enough, this is also useful in implementing your stop doing list. Let's take an example. You are really busy at work. Your boss approaches you and asks you to actively volunteer, perhaps be a co-lead, for the United Way campaign at work. You like to help because it is a worthy cause, and you are behind on 3 deadlines, one of them from that very same boss. What are 5 ways to say yes in this situation? Yes, I will be happy to spend a few hours a week on United Way and be the project co-lead. 2. Yes, I will attend the kickoff meeting and speak with the lead about the project and time involved. 3. Yes, I will email or call the project lead and find out about it. 4. Yes, I will participate in United Way starting next week once I have met your deadline. 5. Yes, I am interested in United Way. Noticing that there are a couple of pending deadlines, I wonder which one you suggest we push out by a week. Do you notice a subtle movement as we went from options 1 through 5? That the yes options are a combination of agreement and pushback, and yet the word no doesn't ever come into the conversation. Be as authentic as possible. Remember that you want to fulfill the need or request. At the same time, don't have to jump to the full-service car wash mode right away. Chapter 6. S is for stress. After outlining the misery acronym, we covered both materialism and incongruence in Chapter 5. We will look at emptiness, relationships, and Yeti in Chapter 7. Stress, however, was so important and evoked so much energy, inputs, and eye-opening insights that it needed one complete chapter. This chapter will outline the key causes of stress and explore solutions to key stressors. Stress is key to reducing the miserably successful syndrome. While the miserably successful among us may not experience several of the other factors, stress is the great equalizer. It is experienced by people across cultures, socioeconomic status, gender, generations, and style. Why is this awareness pivotal in a book dedicated to diversity of style? Because we make ourselves miserable and cause self-imposed stress trying to fit into others' personality expectations first. Then, failing to understand how our family, friends, and colleagues are different from us, we cause them stress also. In informal interviews with audiences, session participants, readers, colleagues, as well as personal observations, the following stressor themes emerged. Major sources of stress: time and schedules, overload, deadlines, being late, most common, internal tendencies, chronic nature, what if and did I worrying, physical appearance, weight listed most by women, otherwise for men, relationships, typically one or two specific people, loneliness, divorce, ego, unhealthy competitiveness, always having to be the smart one, health, separately listed from weight, though of course correlated, finances, not having enough money for survival, loss of youth, beauty, relationships, loved one, fear of death and dying, violation of values, integrity and kindness were the most often listed, work, mismatch with one's passion or skills, fear of being fired, boss, politics, particularly in the U.S. in an election year, performance, output quality, public speaking, tough interactions, outliers, being different from mainstream, not fitting in. There were a few others also noteworthy. Several of the stressors were interrelated. A person whose job was very stressful with multiple deadlines felt it even more because of his natural tendency to worry. Some of these respondents set 2 or 3 alarm clocks before an important meeting and still jumped up in panic through the night. Here's an acronym that summarizes the most major and frequent sources of stress. S. Style, innate worrier, common topics, death, divorce, public speaking, items listed below. T. Time, work overload, schedules, family tension, being late, deadlines. R. RX, health, both physical and emotional. E. Ego, the unhealthy need to win, trying to appear smart all the time. S. Substance, finances even when person was wealthy. Career, work content. S. Surroundings, home, office, car, cluttered things. Stress, issue description, and costs to health and well-being. Style, an internal tendency to worry. This manifests itself as a chronic anxiety, a natural bent toward worrying about oneself and others or the world in general. Even in what should be the most enjoyable and rewarding of times, one cannot truly enjoy the moment because that inner voice is asking, did I remember to lock the door or turn off the iron? Or, I wonder if my boss is upset with me? Or, is this milk past its expiration date? Or, interestingly enough, things that were common stressors for some did not bother chronic worriers at all. The key is to become an expert at diagnosing your own. The worry could be about the past, as listed earlier, or the future, what-if thinking, The constant fear of bad things about to land on one was crippling for people in this group. People spend a huge amount of energy worrying about outcomes they have completely no control over. In a book devoted to style diversity, please understand that we are not pointing fingers here. I have always been a chronic worrier. Perhaps it started so young because I was around someone like that in early childhood, or it was part of my inherent nature. What are the things, this is addressed to readers who are chronic worriers, that you worry about all the time? Ask yourself the following questions. Are they within your control? Are they worth the life-draining costs to your health and happiness? Are you slowly killing yourself through the thickening of your arteries, increasing your risk of a heart attack, your blood pressure? Are you changing the outcomes by worrying? As they say, hope for the best and plan for the worst. Having contingency plans is different. Specifically, assess the energy you waste worrying about the trivial or uncontrollable. Let's address the last pivotal question listed above in more detail. In Bridge of Spies, the American attorney asks the alleged Russian spy facing a possible death sentence why or how he can appear so calm and unmoved, to which Abel, the alleged spy, replies, "Will it help?" That, in a nutshell, is my advice for us, since this is a lifelong struggle for me as well. When you wake up in the middle of the night worrying, when you wake up tense, when you have anxiety in every pore of your being, can you ask yourself, will it help? Let me repeat myself intentionally, something I rarely do, because this is so critical to chronic stress management. Will it help? If you can take action about it, do so. Life isn't always fair. Things you wish didn't happen can and will happen, and we have to deal with them. But, looking at the chronic worrying, following you like a shadow, ask yourself as you feel it begin, will it help? Time, schedules, deadlines, too much to do. In an increasingly frenetic world, this was a big one. Working too hard, there appeared to be an unreasonable demand on a person's time. Deadlines are always looming. We fear that many will be missed. There's just too little time. I know this feeling well and describe it as always having a clock ticking in one's head, the constant feeling of rushing, of being late for something important. This is another area where you must ask yourself, how much of your time-related stress is self-imposed? This book has, ironically, caused me huge stress for 2 years. Setting an unreasonably high completion deadline, when health issues surfaced, I imposed more stress on myself. In reality, no one was waiting for or expecting the second book. It would have been so enjoyable after the first book was released to simply savor the thrill of a new experience. Instead, there was a constant inner voice reminding me that I had failed by missing an aggressive, self-imposed publishing deadline. So my first question to you is, how much of your deadline-related stress was self-imposed? The second question is, how much of your calendar is within your control? The ability to say no or stop doing things is key. Also, we will go deeper into the 5 ways to say yes tool. RX, health. 3 aspects of health were major stressors: physical health, chronic pain, and emotional health. Physical health involved unhappiness with current weight, shape, appearance, especially where it stopped people from doing things they could do earlier. Some people were unfortunate enough to live with chronic pain, and this impacted their entire quality of life. In rare cases, people had been diagnosed with life-threatening illnesses. This naturally consumed their waking thoughts and energy. The final factor was emotional health, which has some alarming statistics associated with it. At a recent TEDx talk, Stephen Ilardi referenced the growing rate of depression in the United States. Among thousands of Aborigines, only a dozen or so were diagnosed with depression. While the percentage is fairly low for Americans currently in their 60s, around 5%, for people under 25, this number is 25%, projected to be as high as 50% over time. Please internalize this finding, that 1 out of 2 people currently in their 20s is projected to experience depression later on in life. A huge cause of depression for our younger generations has to do with bullying, a lack of tolerance, and emotional safety. Perhaps my view is jaded, but I believe that the best gift we can give our children is experience in losing, in failure. Ego, the unhealthy need to win. Where physical appearance was skewed toward females, an obsessive desire to win was skewed toward the men in this survey. People who experienced this phenomenon confessed to cheating if they felt they might lose, even if the stakes were absurdly low, such as a game of bridge or family game night. Often their identity was linked to being smart or winning, to the point of feeling threatened or at risk if they weren't always ahead. Parents, thinking they are raising their child's self-confidence, often mistakenly turn their children into misfits, constantly seeking instant gratification, getting prizes and rewards for breathing, in my opinion. Perhaps my view is jaded, but I believe that the best gift we can give our children is experience in losing, in failure, so they can learn how to do so gracefully. Self-confidence and ego are not to be confused with each other. Ego becomes a stressor when our self-worth is linked to always being right, winning, or not losing face. Substance, money, career, content of life choices. The need for even more, a mismatch between their actual work content, career choice, and skills or passion. Most of the people questioned were stable from society's perspective. Yet, many of them worried, some fiercely about finances. There was a deep need, a hole that could not be filled enough. Fascinating. When I asked what number was enough to stop worrying, they quoted a figure. My follow-up question, how much would that number have been 5 or 10 years ago, was eye-opening for many. They currently possessed more than they had aspired to, crossing their financial stability goals. Yet they continued to hold on to the fear and stress. Another stressor in the substance category was the actual work itself. For example, a person who was great in finance and well rewarded actually wanted to be an entertainer. So, there was a feeling of time rushing by, being trapped in a life of quiet desperation. Surroundings, home office, car, clutter, people in that space. This could include one's office, home, car, or not being on top of one's paperwork. People within this category were really stressed by their disorganized workspace or home. Some had post-it notes in stacks and piles all over their offices, color-coded. Another huge stressor was the inability to find things. Keys, valuables, documents. Under stress, they tended to lose more things more often as their brains froze, prisoners of a vicious cycle. If this is one of your key stressors, the checklist in the appendix may help, as well as Marie Kondo's best-selling book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Finally, and most interesting of all, surrounding stress could be caused by a person or persons being close by. After reading this list, look at your major stressors. You may have anything from just one to all of the factors listed. There is no right or wrong, obviously. What stresses you out stresses you out. Don't get bogged down by overgeneralization by age, gender, style, culture. Do men never worry about their weight? Are women never competitive? There are no absolute gender or other stereotypes in this discussion. You now have a rough categorization of some of the key things that stress most of us. If you self-categorized as an innate worrier, wouldn't it be ironic if, by analyzing your stress, you added to it? Relax. At the very least, slow down your breathing and realize that recognizing an issue is a good first step in solving it. There are simple tools for all the factors. Self-analysis, your highest sources of stress. As you analyze your top 3 stress factors, some things will jump out at you. Write them down. Take your time. Follow your first instincts. Then go back. Which are the top 3 things in this list that cause you stress? Make a note of them in the blank space or circle the items listed earlier. We will revisit this at the end. Look at the multiple ideas and solutions to common stressors customized to your style and personality. Simple stress solutions. We will explore some solutions from research, personal observations, and interview responses. These do not represent a complete set. They are designed to jog your memory to a time when you or someone you know was able to successfully conquer stress. It goes without saying that the way you handle stress will be unique to your style. An introvert may find great peace in solitude. An extrovert will relieve that same stress by talking it out with people, together or separately. Solutions for style. An internal tendency to worry. Self-awareness and the recognition of being a chronic worrier is the first step. You cannot alleviate this issue if you don't acknowledge that it exists. Make a note. Look at the words people use around you. Above all, let your guard down and be open to feedback. A manager at work who knew me beyond the facade, remember, I fooled most people with a calm demeanor, would quietly say, "Take a deep breath. It's going to be okay." Let's unpack this more fully. The chronic worrier almost never fully enjoys a waking moment, is never at peace. In the middle of magnificent achievements, there are worries. Did I lock the house? Car. Leave the iron on. Forget to mail that check. At some point or the other, almost all of us have gone back home to check if we left the door unlocked or a stove on or something similar. That is what one would call typical worrying. What the chronic worrier does is obsessively fret about something, anything, almost all the time, about whether their house is being burgled while they are on vacation, or whether their children will look after them in old age. This is a never-ending process. It's like being perennially tuned to a really bad radio station, where every second the message is blasting in your inner ear. Oh no! What if? There is an unusual physical condition called tinnitus, literally a ringing in the ear. In rare cases, this ringing is so loud and disruptive that it impacts the quality of that person's life, interfering with sleep patterns, relationships, and success at work. A chronic worrier has the psychological equivalent of tinnitus. The noise never really goes away. Once you have become aware of this stressor and accepted that you have this tendency, the next step is what I call positive what-if thinking. What is the worst that can happen to you if that thing you were afraid of happened? Take both practical and psychological steps to reduce worrisome situations. For example, if you were afraid that you left the iron on, invest in an iron that shuts itself off. If you were afraid of being laid off, talk to a financial advisor or analyze your finances yourself. Surrounding yourself with calmer people versus chronic worriers is another great solution. Finally, there are many people who believe in the long-term effects of deep breathing and meditation techniques that can slow down the mind and reduce stress over time. Some of you will recognize this description as applying to you immediately. I am so sorry that you have suffered so much for so long. Others will read the words and understand it in your brains, but not quite get this phenomenon, which is good. You are most likely not a chronic worrier or in severe denial. Does this apply to someone in your family, a friend, or a colleague? Please advise them to read this chapter. Solutions for time. Schedules, deadlines, too much to do. Time can involve work overload or family work tension, being late, not meeting deadlines, an overpacked schedule. During particularly stressful times when these things tend to overwhelm us, the first step is recognizing danger zones. This is linked to our self-awareness aspect of emotional intelligence, e.g., do not take it for granted that intense deadlines are stressors for everyone. Speaking with an air traffic controller who has thousands of people's lives in their hands, you may assume that the person is highly stressed, and indeed that person may be, or she may be exhilarated by the complexity of the situation and the heady feeling that she can conquer and solve it. Time and schedules need to be managed if they cause us stress. Two solutions to deadline-related pressures are calendaring, both strategic and tactical time management, and root cause analysis. 1. Calendaring. Find a system that works. For most people, it's a combination of virtual, online calendars, and physical, planners, wall or desk calendars, boards. A few fundamental principles. 1. If it's important, put it on the calendar. 2. If it's on the calendar, ask if it's important. 3. Plan consistently for the day, week, month, and year ahead. 4. Don't lie to yourself about how you spend your time. Simple? Yes. Easy? No. I am aware that, in a book on style diversity, we must acknowledge that people are polar opposites in time management. If having post-it notes all over your office and home are common for you, there is a good chance you are a P in MBTI. If you were a J in MBTI, a list maker, checking off calendar items, planning for the week, you will resonate with these ideas. Adapt these ideas to suit your style. Look at your vision. Make sure that what Stephen M. R. Covey called the big rocks, time with family, self-nurturing, career networking, doctor visits, are in your calendar first. Don't get caught in busy work while taking no steps toward your vision. This is a process I want you to follow mindfully. Process is as critical as content in behavior change. This realization has been immensely powerful for me. Let's harvest this data together. Look at the first item. When you put important things in your calendar, you are being strategic. You are also adding things which will take up time. So you must have an equal or greater item to remove in that time period for the math to work. It's simple and logical. The last item, remove stressors and time wasters, is a tactical remove. This frees up time for the corresponding ad. I share these tips with you because this list is just a starting point. Customize this process for yourself, always keeping intact the logic of a 24-hour day with hopefully an 8-hour sleep allowance built in. Be sure to categorize as strategic or tactical and as adding or subtracting from your calendar. Put the important things in your calendar first, strategic ads. Analyze and change self-imposed deadlines and unrealistic expectations, strategic. Reflect on why you set them in the first place. Let your calendar reflect your new thinking. Build in buffers for everything you possibly can, tactical ads. Watch out for high-stress periods. Build extra cushion, tactical ads. Review your calendar weekly, monthly, and annually, and continuously improve calendaring. Strategic and tactical adds and subtracts. Remove or reduce time wasters, or worse, stressors. Strategic and tactical subtracts. Hopefully by now you are seeing how multiple aspects of what makes you miserably successful can be managed according to your unique and different style, and that they all overlap, are intertwined. Find what works for you. Let this start your juices flowing, so you can design what is of aid to you. Author's note. My final tip is, adjust the buffer between meetings and events depending on the criticality of the event itself. So if you like to be 10 minutes early for a relatively low criticality event, leaving 10 minutes early is fine. However, add a multiplier if it's more important. I use 2 times multiplier buffers for a moderately important and 3 times multipliers for critical items, such as catching an international flight. If you find this type of calendaring too prescriptive, it's good to know this about yourself. Take a couple of ideas from it and move on. Calendaring is a tool. Your actions reflect your purpose. Do your actions say you are drifting meaninglessly through life, helplessly pulled along by a tide of shoulds? Or are you rowing with intent toward a destination? The first part of this book was about understanding your destination in life. This section is about making the time to reach that destination. Number 2, attacking the root cause of the too much to do syndrome. A, analyzing the syndrome using the 5 whys tool. B, learning the 5 ways to say yes technique if the root cause is taking on too much. C, understanding the need that is met by agreeing so much. The 5 whys is a quality control tool also used in statistical process control analysis. We will use it to examine why you got here in the first place. Number 1, why are you so stressed because of time and schedules? Let's say the answer is you are too busy, have too much to do. Using the 5 whys approach, we will dig deeper into the root cause of your behavior. Number 2, why are you so busy? Answer, there are 2 deadlines both coming up in the next 3 weeks, and I have promised to host a huge retirement party. Also, my colleague retired and, until his replacement is found, I am doing double duty. Take any one of these sub-answers and ask a related question. Number 3, why are you filling in for your retired colleague, given your already heavy workload? Answer, because my boss asked me to take on the extra work. Number 4, why do you say yes to everything your boss asks you to do? This 4th question is probably the most critical of the series, because it may be symptomatic of a trend versus a one-time event. Try to remember the last time you said no to this boss. Honestly compare your workload to that of your colleagues. Reflect on how your coworker, when asked the same kind of question, responded differently. She asked your boss which of her current projects could either be delegated to someone else or delayed in order to clear up some time for this new project. Now, let's apply the data harvesting and pattern recognition process to this situation, asking the final question, why are you afraid to say no to your boss? There are no right or wrong answers to this question, just the truth. The answer may be because of the boss's strong temperament, talks very loudly, very opinionated, sharp-tongued, or exactly the opposite, quiet and soft-spoken. You respect him so much that you don't ever want to say no and disappoint him, because he has done so much for your career. There are clearly multiple possible responses to this question. Once we get closer to the root of the problem, we can ask, what would you do if you weren't afraid? This powerful question can open up new worlds of possibilities. If you were guaranteed there would be no negative consequences to speaking your mind, and if you were assured that the relationship with the other party would stay as good or even become stronger, what would you say and do? Solutions for RX. Health. You already know what a healthy lifestyle means. You are just not spending time doing what you know to be good for you. If this is a big stressor, take a small step. Let's consider 3 aspects of health. Physical health, maintaining and improving. Physical health involves basic things like eating well and adequate movement. You already are intelligent enough to know what's good for you, so let's not waste each other's time. If you know that walking 10,000 steps or exercising moderately for 30 minutes 3 times a week will make you feel better, then why aren't you doing it? I am intentionally keeping this section really short. If you are serious about improving your physical well-being, start executing plans toward that goal. Schedule that overdue doctor's visit, sign up for a gym or walking program, go out to buy healthy foods that you like. Chronic pain, alleviation. A few of you are unfortunately dealing with chronic pain. Those of you who are not in chronic pain, take a minute to imagine a world where you are suffering every waking moment of your life. I hope this realization makes you take some steps, couldn't resist the pun, right now. Health issues. Serious, possibly life-threatening. If you have been diagnosed with a potentially fatal or life-threatening illness or condition, first of all, I am so sorry. If you cannot improve your health at this time, make things right where possible with closure and pass on your message. Let that be your legacy. There are so many examples of brave people who have done exactly that. The Steve Jobs video on his deathbed, the inspirational video of Randy Pausch, the last lecture, I highly recommend that you see the latter, an intelligent, successful man deciding to do with the last few weeks of his life, following a fatal diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. Instead of slowly dying a quiet, sad death, Dr. Pausch spoke at multiple venues for as long as he could. He delivered an absolutely inspirational speech about how to deal with negative feedback, how to apologize, value people over things, show gratitude, how to dream. Take the time to decide what your legacy is. Just months before dying of pancreatic cancer in 2007, Dr. Pausch said, "If you live your life the right way, your dreams will come to you. I choose to have fun today." His question, are you a Tigger or an Eeyore, refer to the choice we have, which impacts both our physical and emotional health, of complaining versus working harder while having fun. And when the end comes, as it will one day for all of us, which kind of legacy would we like to leave? That of a Dr. Randy Pausch, who was truly inspirational, or nothing? So what is the solution to emotional health issues? Obviously, I have no background in any of these areas, so consult with a professional if you are experiencing emotional health issues, and please follow their clinical and expert advice and diagnosis. That, in fact, is my first suggestion, to take this seriously and address the issue. Too many lives have been lost in ignoring this topic because of the social stigma around it. Also, there are several cultures where this is considered to be a made-up issue, so breaking that cultural stereotype is critical. Finally, a word on bullying. Why do we, as parents, let our kids get away with being bullies? Conversely, why do we allow our children to be bullied without equipping them with coping and resilience skills? We need to take responsibility for the way we treat others and how outside influences affect our personal emotional health. Just as we should not tolerate bullying behavior in others, so also should we be keenly aware of the impact of our own actions. Do we understand the very real difficulties associated with specific emotional health issues? Getting to the bottom of these issues with professional guidance can help alleviate stress in other areas. I believe firmly in the power of massage, breathing, meditation, and non-traditional remedies to multiple health issues, particularly stress-related. Also, if we have successfully navigated through the stop doing chapters and taken out hours of couch potato television viewing and video games, we are already ahead of the health game. Normal preventative health is a matter of habit, breaking the bad ones and replacing them with healthy ones. Listen to your body and mind. What do they crave? Silence? Then turn off the noise, and so on. Solutions for ego, the unhealthy need to win. This can be linked to a destructively competitive nature, having to appear the smartest person in the room. How does one know that one has proceeded to the unhealthy competition versus constructive competition? Miserably successful people, in my experience, have more than a representative share of cutthroat competitiveness, of leaving body bags, of winning at all costs, often resulting in short-term gains. The inner cost of this unhealthy competitiveness is twofold. First of all, the toll it takes on the body and health, linked to Type A personalities. All Type A's are not unhealthy competitors, obviously. There have been studies linking physical stressors to health. Can and does this characteristic cause thickened arteries and increase your risk of strokes or heart ailments? Second, the cost to interpersonal relationships. Does this person want to win at all costs? Is he, therefore, a sore loser? Is this person's identity inextricably dependent on being seen as the smartest, strongest, best person in the room? In other words, is he miserable if he loses, regardless of how low the stakes are? How can a healthy relationship thrive under these circumstances? Recognize the pattern, even if you do not have this trait. The key is not always the content, win or loss, but the process of arriving at it. Get honest feedback from someone who will give you the palatable truth if you are not ready for the hammer. If you can take it, the hammer is the one which can change your behavior. The feedback I received decades ago about dysfunctional competitiveness was so shocking that maintaining the status quo was no longer an option. Solutions for substance, money, career, content of life choices. If you are reading a book called Miserably Successful No More, there is a high probability that you are financially comfortable, perhaps even wealthy. And yet, many of you worry about not having enough. We introduce the idea of never having enough in M is for materialism. This section relates to the stress that is caused by finances and substance. However, there are 3 questions that will help you deal with this stressor. 1. How much do I need? 2. How much do I have? 3. Will I feel financial stress no matter how much money I have? The third question is particularly critical to self-awareness. If the honest answer to the third question is yes, then this worry around substance has nothing to do with the substance itself. Go back to the emotional intelligence and self-awareness chart on page 37 and reflect on which aspects trigger your worries: low self-regard, optimism, or stress tolerance. Author's note: obviously, if finances are a stressor because of insufficient funds, the solution set is different and beyond the scope of this book. Please consult a financial professional for ways to reduce outflow and increase intake. Solutions for surroundings: home office, car, clutter, people in that space. If clutter and disarray is a source of significant stress in your life, read Marie Kondo's New York Times bestseller, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. It has changed many lives. While implementing the Marcon system may feel like a big undertaking, it can be a game changer if you practice her techniques successfully. If this is a top stressor, be open to her ideas without getting overwhelmed. Don't go for perfect. Reflect on the need that holding on to stuff is fulfilling. How can you meet that need without holding on to the thing itself? For example, if you have a sentimental attachment to your child's small clothes, keep a favorite sweater if it means that much to you. Then, take pictures of everything else. Imagine that underprivileged child who will be warm because of these clothes. Then put everything in bags and give it away before you have time to start taking things out. Lingering is the enemy of uncluttering. Now would also be a good time to go back to the M is for materialism checklist in the appendix and see what jumps out at you. This will help prioritize the uncluttering. Examine what makes you hold on to or acquire so many things that it is cluttering up your physical and emotional space. We have seen a lot of stressors and explored many ideas for reducing the critical ones. Before we get overwhelmed, or move on to the next chapter, let's take stock and make some concrete commitments to change. Summary: Reducing Stress Worksheet. List your top 3 stressors. If you had the answer, what would it be? What is one thing you will do to reduce the worst of your stressors from this moment onward? At this point, reader, you may become a little overwhelmed and decide all this is too much work. That's okay. Very typical, in fact. Don't stop or give up or give in. Just pick one thing. Do it in chunks. Get the help of your support systems. Then find the time to do something about it. It is that logical and simple. 4 powerful questions to help conquer stress. 1. Is reducing stress important to you? 2. What is the cost of doing nothing? 3. What could you do if you weren't afraid? 4. What are you waiting for?